Okay, well, hi there. I don't know why I put on headphones. I have nothing to listen to right now. It's just me speaking. Um, I am PB Swamer. I am a book babe now. I can't deny it. I just do. I am. I started a year ago when I bought a motorcycle. I had the tattoos, and now I've read a ton. Maybe a fair bit of books. A ton, I don't know if I'd say for sure because of how many some book babes actually clear. Like, I clear one or two maybe a week at best. If it's a really short one, if I really like it, I can finish it in 1 to 2 days. But I know women that clear like several hundred a year. So that's just not me. So, today I am discussing the Ravenhood series because I just finished the finish line. Literally, I put my phone down 10 seconds ago. But I figured I'm going to start doing long-winded reviews of these books. There's going to be no editing. There's no second takes. There's no nothing. I'm going to ramble until I'm done. And this is going to be too long for TikTok and too much for everything else. So I'm going to post on YouTube and hopefully it gets popular. We're going to start out with my initial thoughts that I think will have no spoilers. The first book is the best book of the series, without question in my mind. The relationship that develops in the first book, relationships are by far the best. All of the stories are incredibly well written. If you're looking for books that focus more on relationships than any other part, I think, of the storyline, this is probably really good to go for. It's very relationship heavy, it's emotional and things like that. It's not as much tons of action. The finish line especially had like tons of just lore. So my understanding, as people have explained it to me, is the K. Stewart originally wrote, Flock, and then Exodus, and it was going to be a 2-book series. But Exodus kind of ends abruptly, so people wanted a 3rd book to kind of explain the aftermath, some more lore and stuff like that. So finish line is super lore heavy. I think the best parts of this book is how the characters are developed. You gain extremely strong feelings about the characters. Whether you love them or hate them, I have some opinions, but it dredges up emotion very heavily. So they're fantastic books to read. I would highly recommend them. Me personally, they weren't I didn't hate them, but it wasn't my favorite books because it's more emotional and stuff like that, and that's just not really my vibe. I like really heavy action, and the action scenes are written really well, but there's just few and far in between, and it's a lot of emotional and psychology and stuff like that. So these are this books. Okay, that's the end of the spoiler-free section, so if you haven't read the books, then get out. Okay, let's go through my list. First, Dominic drives a classic Chevy Camaro, which if you've read all the books, you know where the Camaro ends up. Tobias and Cecilia gets the Camaro from Sean, which I hated because I did not feel like she deserved it, but he had ulterior motives, which was to track her using the car, which 100% worked. But on top of that, Dom did say that she should get the car, but we're going to move on from that in a minute. Next thing, Sean drives a Chevrolet Nova. It's a mediocre car. I like it. It's cool. Celia drives some kind of Audi. I'm only saying this because I'm a car guy, and these are in my notes. So I'm just going through all my notes without question. Cecilia drives some kind of Audi. It's a pretty fast Audi because she outruns Tobias in the second book in a Jaguar. I mean, granted, he's driving a Jaguar sedan. Ugh. Whatever. Next part. One of the things I read that really bothered me is that Sean can dance. The man does nothing but hike and fight and everything else all day, and yet he somehow has time for dance lessons. And also, I want to point out, not once in Finish Line did they mention him learning when. When did he have time for that? Why? It feels very out of character. You know, he's this big macho bad guy, and then he also can dance. Okay. Let's see. Next thing is, this is a plot hole to me. So this is mostly in just Flock. I'm going in order, so these are my notes for Flock. Their meetups are in the backyard. Yes, right? Cecilia figures that out in the first book of Flock. She starts blaring music loud enough so they can hear from the spot. so they could hear the music from her house. Explain to me how she could not hear a ton of super loud classic cars from her house. Like a speaker is loud enough that they can hear it, but classic cars, and they race at like almost every, well, not every meeting. They don't specify how often they race, but they raced at the meeting she went to, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, you could hear the roar of the engine." Okay, well, what? Why couldn't you hear the roar of the engines when you were at the house? They don't mention that one time. Really bothered me. Okay, that was all the notes I have for Flock, which is by far the best one, because we're gonna go into my quick rant because Sean and Dom are the best relationships. I am a Sean girly, okay? Sean is the best in this. Dom shortly followed, and then Tobias and Cecilia can kick rocks. I hate both of them. Nothing changed from the rest of the series, but just focusing on Flock, Sean and Dom are the best. I love them. I wish all three of these books were entirely written about just Sean, Dom, and Cecilia. I was hoping that they would get back together. They didn't, and I'm upset about it throughout the entire book. The entire series, but it is what it is. Okay, going into Exodus. Again, Tobias drives a Jaguar sedan. I mean, granted, I understand that she was looking for a European car, and the French don't make really good sports cars. They just don't, especially in the ones that are imported. So her best option was British, but he couldn't drive like an Aston Martin. A Jaguar sedan? That is so not cool. Like, they make some mediocre Jaguar sedans, but like, if anything, why, if you're going for British cars, Aston Martin Vantage or something like that. Crazy fast cars, beautiful to look at, super sophisticated, would match his whole suit look so well. Jaguar sedan, ugh. Second part is, clearly, early on in my notes, I had some opinions from, because my thing says, well, Cece is a slut, because at one point someone called her Cece, and I just abbreviated. Cecilia is a slut. Tobias comes in to show her that she would, like, give in to him, and she was like, no, okay. Oh, let's just forget about Sean and Dom, okay? Like, I know it's been 8 months, but, like, this guy comes in and you're like, well, I guess you can do it with me. Whore, okay? You're the worst, and I hate you. It started off, yeah, okay. Next part is, I imagine Tobias is too big for a Jaguar. This is back when I thought he was driving a old classic Jaguar, which are very small cars, and he's described as this big, muscular dude. But then they explain he drives a sedan, which would mostly be an XF Jaguar, which are bigger, but so. 15 chapters in to Exodus, I hated everybody because they got rid of Sean and Dom. At this point, they're somewhere. You don't know where yet. Obviously, they're in France, but and I just said I hate everybody because I do. Because I hated Tobias and I hated Cecilia. Cecilia and Flock was okay. Cecilia and Exodus and Finish Line, okay. Chapter 25. God damn it! I'm quoting myself from these notes. God damn it! I hate this book. There goes one of the only characters I even like. God, I hate Cecilia, and it is absolutely her fault. So we get a little more context later in Finish Line that it's not entirely her fault. But I finished the series now, and I still mostly blame her for Dom's death. This next note is explained a little bit in Finish Line. It's I'm so confused with the Florida guys thought would happen. They would just kill Cecilia and Dom and Tom, and Dom, Sean, and Tobias would just let it go. So as we learn, Jerry, who is Rowan's old business partner, was tipped off by Tobias's French gangster friend, and that's why he sent the Florida. But what does Florida guys think? It's a genuine question. They were going to show up and kill. I just don't. It doesn't make sense to me. I get it that Florida was like one of the bigger groups, but like, what was the end result? They get paid and then they die because the Ravenhood's going to hunt them down and kill them. I don't know. I didn't understand that part. I think that it explains a little bit more, but whatever. Chapter 35. Chapter 35 is when she comes back and Ryan. So she's crushing Ryan. You know, she's like, oh, I loved you. Except the entire time that she's in a relationship with Ryan, her fiance, she knows she doesn't care about him. She's like, oh, you're never meant to be what I want. You're never what I wanted. Okay, so you're a terrible person. Like, don't get in a relationship with him. Now you're fully engaged, knowing that you want to be with Tobias, Sean, or Dom. Like, any of them. All of the above. God, I hate you, Cecilia. Next chapter, Tobias has a relationship with, I can't remember her name, it was written down. One of the girls whose brother was in the Ravenhood. He's dating her, and now he's just cheating on her because they're in like some kind of small relationship. Although later he claims they weren't dating at all, but they definitely were a thing. So he was just cheating, but whatever. So this is why I'm like, wow, Tobias sucks, Cecilia sucks. Chapter 44. Oh no, Ryan is the lawyer. Okay, a few seconds back. Ryan was not her fiance. Ryan was a lawyer who she also found out was in love with her and was just like, whatever. Chapter 44. Colin is so nice. Poor Colin. That was her fiance. Poor Colin. He was so nice and kind with his little British accent. And then Tobias just beats him up, which admittedly, a little bit Colin's fault. Like, if you see a giant, thuggy gangster dude and you taunt him, mistake. Like, the book says he bops him on the nose, which I just pictured as Tobias tackling him and just going like, boop, like gently, just hard enough to make him bleed, but to literally like rearing back a foot, just like, whatever. Next part, I never believed in Tobias and Cecilia. I still don't. I finished the entire series. The finish line is supposed to give, like, the finish line makes their relationship better. But I still don't buy it. Alright, hang on, we'll get to that in a minute. I think the reason I never bought Tobias and Cecilia... Okay, so we're on finish line now. The reason I never bought Tobias and Cecilia is they never did any normal things. That is actually answered in the finish line. They start to live together. They start to do normal, everyday things. And their relationship starts to build, but I just don't want to freaking buy it. Next part is, how the hell is everyone jacked? Everybody in every part of this book is jacked. I just want to point that. No, there's no fat people. There's no fat people in Ravenhood world. Like, that doesn't happen. Tobias is jacked. Sean's jacked. Dom's jacked. Mr. Handsome at the diner's jacked. Colin's jacked. Ryan's jacked. Everybody's just ripped. Just muscle dudes. Tobias is the biggest because obviously he has to be. That's the rule of dark romance. The biggest guy has to be the, you know. It does say he goes on runs a lot, which, by the way, not a good way to keep up your size. I want to point out. It doesn't say he's lifting. It says he runs like 4 times a day. That makes you lean. That doesn't make you big. You have to eat a lot to be big. I don't. Whatever. It's dark romance. It's one of the rules of dark romance. Everyone's jacked. The only parts I'm really enjoying are Tobias' flashback. That remains true. So for the finish line, the only parts I genuinely enjoyed were the flashbacks of him and Dom's past, which I stand by. Him, Dom, and Sean's past, the world building he was in, Antoine, the French gangster that he works for. That was the best part of the book to me. Now, granted, I'm a guy, and that's very important. The relationships is the part that the women read the books for, and they really like that. But the action part is the part I like, so the flashbacks are the most action-filled part, excluding the end. But that's... So, still, the entirety of Finish Line, my favorite parts were the flashbacks. And you got to see more of Sean and Dom, who are the best characters. Whatever. Chapter 41, I wrote, Cecilia is finally doing something. Because... I want to point out, does she do anything useful in all... I keep doing this way. All of Flock and Exodus? She does nothing useful the entire time. Like, she's not helping the cause at all. Oh, well, she does take down Rowan's old business partner in Exodus. So that's one thing. She does one thing right in all of 2 books and most of the finish line. Although you find out at the end she's actually in the know. She knows things. She's doing well, so... But good lord, I will say, that was one of the reasons I did not guess the ending at all for the finish line, is because she was so unbearably unlikable and seemed so useless
that I did not predict her to be helpful at all, which made the twist really good, actually. Which is why I never don't finish books, is because twists like that make the rest of the book good, and that's why. So, yeah, that was all the notes I had. Great series. I hated Cecilia. I hated Tobias. I just don't like them. I think it's because they weren't Sean and Dom, who were the best characters in the series. I still like Sean the most, shortly followed by Dom, who died, and I hate them for I still blame Cecilia for it, even though they try to pawn it off as Dom. This ranting makes my throat dry. Alright, that's it. What would I rate this book? Give it a 7. 7 out of 10. I think if you're a girl, I'd give it an 8, because it's a good book. The relationships are great. Oh my god, it was heart-wrenching. Like, the kids, them as kids. Oh, honestly, I don't want to mention that. I didn't have it in my notes, but one of my favorite parts is when Cecilia's mom meets Tobias again, and, like, the whole heart... For some reason, that really tugged at my heartstrings. It's like she remembers him from when he was a kid and buying him all the things. Oh my god. That was... Whew! It hit me right in the chest. Other than that, other than Dom dying, I really wasn't that emotionally invested in his books. Which is like the main part of these books, is to be emotionally invested. So the Flock, I was absolutely emotionally invested. But once Sean and Dom were out, I was like, me. Okay. So the book's good. 7.5 out of 10. 8 if you're really into relationships. The character building is great, but that's just my opinion. Okay, that was my first long-running book review. So please leave a comment, subscribe, and tell me what you think. Okay, bye.